All right, today is March 29, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. Today we have a few things on the agenda. First up is Paris. She's going to give us an update from Contribex. After that, we're going to do planning for the storage SIG. So I'm going to hand it over to Paris and we'll take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Saad and I are currently in the same room battling Zoom connections right now. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I am co-chair of Contributor Experience, and I'm here today to do a little roadshow of sorts. Some of you have actually already heard this because you might be core contributors in other SIGs, but what we're doing right now is going through all of our SIGs and working groups to try to communicate a little bit better. All of you are contributors, so all of this information is relevant to you, and all of the work that we do is relevant to you. So we would love to capture feedback and also let you know how we communicate out certain changes that relate to the workflows and just general contribution process. So you can expect us probably once a quarter, hopefully not with this much information. Since this was our first time, we loaded it with a lot of info. So next time, hopefully this is only a 3 to 5 minute instead of a 10-minute. So really quickly, one of the main goals of Contributor Experience this year is if it's not automated, it better be documented. And then also, we would very much like to see a more smooth path for contributors across repos. Right now, a lot of repos have different workflows and things like that. So we're really trying hard to have the contributor have one experience so that we could ultimately have one single point of truth contributor guide. And then, of course, if you do have diversions, then you have your own contributing MD file and possibly also linked in the main contributing guide. So that's kind of our goals this year, and you'll see that in what I'm about to say for the rest. So something that we've been working hard on is label definitions, bots that help your productivity. So the Fata bot, which is the stale issues bot. And we'd really like your feedback on a lot of this stuff because some people are using labels differently. They're also using bot commands differently. So you can see on some of the threads that I've linked in the agenda here, where we're discussing like how people use certain things, and you can see that they do. So, but it's important as we start doing metrics, like for DevStats. If you're not familiar with DevStats, it's kates.devstats.cncf.io, I believe. There is also a link in here as well. But we'll start pulling things like labeling, and when we're pulling things that mean one thing to you and something to another person, then that metric already is skewed. So there's a couple links in here that are asking you for feedback. So just give us some feedback when you have some time on these things and or if you care. Another thing that we're working on is issue triage and issue management. We've come up with some issue triage guidelines, and we were curious to get some feedback on if we should apply these current issue triage guidelines across Kubernetes repos. Link, again, is within this document, and if you could just give us some feedback on that, that would be awesome. So how do you actually find out about a lot of these changes? That's one of the things that we've been hearing from some of the repos, especially as we apply things across repos, is, hey, how did I hear about this, or how are we supposed to hear about this? We actually outlined this in our charter. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a lazy consensus with a time box of at least 72 hours to the following mailing lists with, of course, a GitHub issue link for comments and the subject line with notice. That's going out to Contributor Experience, it's going out to SIG Lead Distro, and it's also going out to Kubernetes Dev. So you'll see all three of those at some point before changes actually happen. And then we're also announcing changes to the announcement section of the community meeting on Thursday. So that's really how you can find out about us and find out about the changes that we would like to adhere to. Speaking of charters, the steering committee has released their SIG governance info and has a charter template. So to all of the chairs and leads of this SIG, if you need any help with your charter, let us know and we can help you. We actually have our first edition of our charter. I'm in the middle of a PR right now to fix that. The things that we're fixing are that we're using the word chair instead of lead now, based again on the steering committee SIG governance. And we're also using technical leads and sub-project owners. I've also linked to a project guide to if you want to see some of the projects that we're working on as well. So speaking of new contributor guide, before in the very beginning, we do have one. We'd love for you to review and make comments and poke holes in it. That's the only way we'll ever get a very good contributor guide, is if we have it nice and tight. The developer guide portion is coming. It's underway right now. And we would love to have your comments on what's currently missing, what we could do better with, what new docs we need. Again, in the developer guide issue link is in the doc as well. Next thing is, how is your group growing your current contributors? Things like burnout are real. We're releasing quarterly, so we do want to make sure that we have a nice, healthy ladder going. And we've created some programs with a couple things in mind. One, your time. Time seems to be always the number one reason as to why folks don't, officially mentor. Even though most of you I know actually are unofficially mentoring, but these are programs that can help you, and we would love to get you involved in these. One of them is a sort of a mentors on demand feature, which is called Meet Our Contributors, and that's once a month. It's a live stream. It's very similar to user office hours, except for its contributor questions, and this is geared towards new and current contributors. Our next one is this Wednesday coming up, and we have 2 time zones for that. We take questions on Slack and Twitter. Love to have you. We do have 2 slots left for each time zone for next Wednesday. But the questions are, how did you get into Kubernetes, all the way to why is this test flaking? So it can be, across the gamut, and no, you don't have to know all the answers. There's 4 to 6 other people on the call too. Another one that I want to highlight is group mentoring, and this really takes a concept of peer mentoring. So we get a group of people together that have a shared goal, which the test that we're currently running is members to reviewers for 3 different SIGs, and it's working out really well. One of the lessons learned is that we can't span 8 time zones. That just doesn't work, especially in mentoring. So we definitely are going to take some of the lessons that we've learned and spawn those off into the next cohort. But erinboyd has actually stepped up for SIG Storage, and we're going to be running a cohort here within the next couple of weeks, where she's going to mentor 4 individuals from new contributor status to membership, and then hopefully possibly even see them through to the next step. But if you're interested in this, ideally this is going to be self-service, because humans involved in this process don't necessarily scale mentoring. So we're working out some really cool automation and things on making this self-service. The next is the Buddy program. And the Buddy program is inspired from GopherCon, and GopherCon has it where new folks that are coming to GopherCon and want a tour and things like that gets assigned a buddy. I'm taking this one step farther, and you get a one-time, 1-hour time commitment with someone in a level higher than you, and you either can pair program with them, you can do code reviews. It's your hour with them. And again, that is hoping to get that automated and very self-service as well. So more on this too. Slack is definitely a hot topic for us as of late, and especially in a lot of open source communities. However, I just want to mention that you should definitely start pinning important documents to your channel, because we're onboarding people like crazy right now. We onboarded 2,000 people in the last 30 days just on Slack, and now we're up to 34,000 people. This is huge. So things like potentially your charter, how new people can get involved, your meeting agenda, etc. We do have Slack guidelines now to take a look, and then also please join in on the Slack admins channel if you need anything at all. The last thing, and then I'm done, I swear, is user office hours. We always are looking for more volunteers. These are great user questions. You get to hear from the community as to where some of the pain points are. Please, there is a link in the doc. Please volunteer for that. And that's it. So again, if you need anything from contributor experience, please reach out. Have any feedback for us? Again, Slack, our mailing list distro, Pigeon Owl, however you need to get it to us, get it to us. Cool. Thank you so much, Saad,
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Paris. Let's do. All right. Any questions for Paris? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you very much, Paris. We'll see you next quarter.
Yeah.
And we'll move on to the next step. We're going to move on to planning for the Kubernetes 1.11 release. So the purpose of the planning session today is to come up with a list of features that we want to work on as a SIG for this next quarter, and preliminarily assign who's going to work on it. We can finalize on these at the next meeting, which is going to be on April 12th, I believe. So let's jump into the planning doc. This is linked in the agenda. Folks have already begun to pre-populate it. We can review these, and as we go along, feel free to add items at the bottom, and we can review them as we get there. So first, we have volume scheduling, dynamic provisioning. Michelle, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so we started the design for this last quarter. We're still working out on the design at the beginning of this quarter, but hopefully in a few weeks we can finalize on that and potentially start on an alpha implementation.
And to be clear, this is the local storage dynamic provisioner?
No, this is modifying the scheduler to support dynamic provisioning that is topology aware.
Got it. Okay. And primary developer on that, is that going to be you, or are you going to be the reviewer?
I'll be shepherding the design,
okay.
and I'll be reviewing most of the code.
Okay.
Primary developer, I think, is going to be from Huawei. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Second part of that is Kubernetes CSI topology implementation. So once the scheduler becomes possible for the scheduler to provide topology suggestions, we need to modify the provisioners to be able to consume that and pass that information along. So we would need to update the CSI external provisioner to handle this. Chang on our side has agreed to work on that, and I can help shepherd that design. There are also going to be changes required to the existing in-tree volume plugin provisioners to enable this. We're going to leave that unassigned at the moment, and then we can pick it up in subsequent quarters, or if folks are interested, let me know and we can add that to this quarter. Next up is the local.
I'll do the.
Who was that? Vlad? Okay, cool.
Real quickly, so the first one is not specifically changes to the scheduler related to volume. Are there more generic changes in the scheduler?
It's generic changes in the scheduler, but specifically for the volume subsystem, but it's not specific to any volume type.
Okay, but does that topology thing, is the change something that can be consumed outside of volume as well?
No, this is only for dynamic provisioning.
Got it. Okay.
And that was Vlad who volunteered to pick that up?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Michelle and Saad, this is Jared Watts. Just a quick question. Does the topology awareness stuff, does that have any impact on Flex volumes at all?
No, because currently Flex does not have any awareness of topology at all. You can't influence where a volume is going to be provisioned, in a generic way through the API. You could do it through opaque parameters, but not through first-class fields.
The design is going to handle both internal and external dynamic provisioners. So if you've written a dynamic provisioner for a flex volume, then you should still be able to take advantage of the feature.
Yep.
Okay, I think I got it. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Is anybody interested in updating the AWS provisioner?
It's also not just the entry provisioner that has to be updated. It's also the admission controllers.
The admission controllers for the
zonal volumes, GCE, PD, and AWS.
Okay. And same thing for Cinder?
I don't know if there's an admission controller for Cinder. I know there's one for GCE and AWS.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one for AWS as well. So.
Okay, so we'll leave that unassigned for now, and then if folks are interested in picking that up, let me know. Moving on, next item is local volume dynamic provisioning, is what I referenced earlier. The idea here is currently local volumes require you to provision PVs manually ahead of time or using some script, and we want to be able to have local volumes dynamically provisioned like GCE PDs or Amazon AWS CVS volumes. Michelle is going to be guiding this design, and looks like we have someone from Huawei working on this, so that's great. Adding support for online volume resizing. Hemant, do you want to give a summary of this?
Yeah, so I think I'll have someone helping me out as well there, because the design was opened by MLHL, his GitHub handler. So it's like the idea is we are already doing the resizing of mounted volumes in because XFS requires us to do it. And so all we have to do is like we need hooks into the code to support it. So we have a design now. We need to figure out a few things, and then we should be good to go.
Okay. And this is going to be moving to alpha this quarter?
No, we are planning to take the whole resizing was already alpha for 2 quarters. So we are planning to take the resizing as beta, and this because we are already resizing the mounted volume. So we want to like along with there's another item for a volume expansion goes to beta. So this will as well go to beta. Otherwise, we'll have to create a different feature flag just for online resizing. For just that bit to go.
Okay, so it'll just be a sub-feature of the volume expansion generally.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the next item there, volume expansion goes beta?
Yep.
Okay, and so you're going to be the lead on both of these or the reviewer?
I'll be the lead for now. I'll try to find I have already someone who will implement it for this one for online, but I just need to talk to and figure it out. So now we can leave it like that.
And who is going to be the primary reviewer for the resize stuff?
Let's put Jan is gonna review it, and if anybody else wants,
Cool.
Hey Hemant, this is Shailesh. I have a question. So this support for online volume resizing, will it be still through admission controller, or they're going to be separate mechanism?
The resizing is not through admission controller. There's a controller, there's a dedicated controller that does that. It's not like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was under the impression that admission controllers and all those things need to be enabled for supporting the claim expansions. So is it beyond the claim, or it is only through the volume?
The admission control just does some sanity check to make sure that you only resize for which storage class permits it to resize. Not every PVC you can resize, but the admission control gets out of the way after that. So the actual resizing is handled by a controller, like a dedicated controller. So the admission controller just does some sanity checks to the.
Okay. I'll read more about it then. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Next item is adding support for volume resizing in CSI. Who wants to pick up this item? It would require 2 parts. One is going in and updating the CSI spec, and the second would be doing the integration in the Kubernetes external CSI components as well as possibly the internal components.
Yeah, so I added that item, but maybe we'll find a owner later on. So
put me on it. Put my name on it. I'll either take it or dole it out.
Okay. Agile. Cool. Next up is volume snapshotting and entry. So this is the snapshotting work that's been going on. For the next quarter, the remaining work is closing on the design for restore and moving or introducing snapshotting in CSI. So the introducing snapshotting in CSI, Xing is already working on that, and that's progressing. And then finally consider moving volume snapshots in tree. We can track these as 3 separate items or a single item. I'll leave them as a single item for now. And we can break them out into 3 separate items if we want to for easier tracking later. Xing is the right person to work on it, and it sounds like Xing is going to continue to shepherd that.
Yes, so we're working together on these items. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And if it gets moved into entry, it would be introduced as alpha initially. The APIs, when they're first introduced into the Kubernetes API, are always alpha. Next up is dynamic max volume per node count. Hemant started the design for this last quarter. Hemant, do you want to actually implement it this quarter or focus on design only?
No, I want to implement this quarter. I think the only missing piece of the puzzle was CSI, and I think we're good there. So I'll open it, design in GitHub, and get this implemented. So
okay. And I can help review this one. Next up is PV health monitoring. Who wants to talk to this?
Hi, Saad. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Nowadays, Kubernetes has no ways to monitor PVs. If volume, for example, if volumes are deleted mistakenly or become unhealthy, Kubernetes will not know that, and that will lead to data loss. So it's necessary for us to monitoring PVs. I have read a proposal for that, and working on a prototype. We'll send it out when ready.
Awesome. Okay. I think there was a big discussion around this at the last face-to-face, and there was confusion about exactly what the scope of this feature should be. It might be an interesting topic for the next face-to-face, but yeah, let's take a look at this and review the designs. It looks like Michelle's already signed up as a reviewer.
Yeah, I've already been reviewing the design. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a kind of a secret. It's not a secret anymore, but there's an effort at Red Hat to do some of this monitoring and recovery.
Okay.
And the first step forward is just get the metrics and the alerts in place, so
right.
that when the stuff's in a bad position, and then the actual recovery part is orthogonal. Like you can do that completely separate. So I think probably the bulk of this is just getting the metrics in place to show that PVs are in a bad state, and then the actual monitoring and recovery of that, anybody can handle however they want.
Cool. Sounds good to me. All right. Next up is volume support moving to beta. I think some of this work got started last quarter but didn't quite finish. Erin, does this seem reasonable for this quarter?
Absolutely. I think it seems reasonable for this quarter.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and target block volumes moving to beta this quarter. And are these the correct set of folks for leading and reviewing this?
No, probably not Mitsuhiro.
Okay.
It needs to instead be, why is my Slack so slow? I'll get you that name. I'll update the spreadsheet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Oh, could you add me to the dev lead?
Yeah.
Is that Nick?
Successor of Mitsuhiro. My name is Masaki.
Here, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
There you go.
Perfect.
That.
All right, and we'll come back and clean this up too.
Thank you.
Next up is block volumes for CSI. There's also
It started. We need to, but we'll put it in this quarter. I haven't had time. Apologize.
Cool.
Someone else is anxiously awaiting that. I wouldn't be opposed.
Okay.
To
Awesome.
handing it off, but I don't know.
And same type of people for working on it.
I would, yes, welcome someone volunteering, but if no one wants to, then I will put it on my list.
Is anybody interested in working on introducing block volume support into CSI? It will give you exposure to both CSI and how block volumes work in the core of Kubernetes.
Yeah, you can put me down, Vladimir.
So maybe we'll move you guys to reviewer and Vlad as the primary.
Thanks, Vlad.
Thanks a lot, Vlad. This will be huge. Next up is preparing CSI for GA in Q3. So as many of you are aware, CSI was introduced in alpha in 1.9 at the end of Q4 last year. And then it was moved to beta this quarter, Q1, in the 1.10 release. And now what we're planning to do is keep it in beta for 1 quarter. So for the 1.11 release, Q2, it's going to remain in beta. And we're going to target moving CSI to GA to stable in Q3, 1.12. In the meantime, for this quarter, we need to drive towards all the loose ends that we have, the to-dos that are outstanding for CSI. There's a separate document where we meet regularly and keep track of all the work that needs to be done there. So we're going to continue to drive towards a GA in Q3. So for this quarter, it remains in beta, but there's still a lot of work left to be done. I can help lead this. And Vlad, would you be okay being the reviewer on this stuff? It's a lot of people reviewing it, but
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Next up is the migration story for entry plugins to CSI. So eventually, as CSI becomes stable in GA, we have 2 motivations for moving entry volume plugins out of tree. One is to not have 2 different places where we're maintaining the same code. And the second is that there's a big push to get cloud provider code out of the Kubernetes core. So today, the entry volume plugins like GCPD, Amazon AWS, Cinder rely on cloud provider code that is vendored into the core of Kubernetes, and we want to decouple that. So those are the big motivators for getting the entry plugins out of tree. That said, the entry volume plugins expose themselves in the Kubernetes API, and therefore the deprecation policy for the Kubernetes API applies. We don't intend to deprecate the entry volume plugins for the cloud providers in the API. Instead, what the plan is that we keep the API as is, but instead modify the business logic. Instead of fulfilling the request internally, proxy them to an external CSI driver. And that means that deployments will need to be updated to make sure that the driver is present. This requires extensive design. David on my team has agreed to pick this up, but we're happy to work with folks here because this will require a lot of input and coordination.
Yeah, I want to participate in this too. I kind of feel it ties in with some of the breaking up of external storage.
Perfect.
Hey, Saad, this is Clint. I'd be happy to help review that as well with Brad.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is
And sorry.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Formulate my thoughts before I open my mouth.
Sure.
Is the plan to just provide documentation for migration, or is the plan also to provide tooling? still to be
I
decided.
think the plan is to develop a plan right now.
Yeah.
We don't have anything besides a plan.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a meeting to talk about the meeting that we're going to have, right?
Yeah, I think this will actually be a big topic for the face-to-face. I hope that we have something more concrete by then, and we can toss around that design. All right, next up is, so in the last quarter, Jing did a heroic effort to try and fix the volume reconstruction code. So for those of you who are familiar with how the core mounting and unmounting logic works, you'll know that there is this edge case where if the kubelet gets crashes and restarts, it loses its in-memory state. And if the pod that was referencing the volume is no longer available on the API server, kubelet does not have any way to recover that state. And there's a bunch of code called the volume reconstruction code in the kubelet volume manager that attempts to read, check for orphaned volume mounts and try to unmount them cleanly. This code has been a source of a lot of bugs in the past. So Jing attempted to fix a lot of those bugs in this last quarter. But it's still a very complicated bit of code. And the fact is that the volume path, the mount path alone does not contain enough information. It doesn't to basically reconstruct the volume spec. And so you're working with incomplete information, and it's still a very delicate piece of code that is likely to continue to be a source of a lot of bugs. The source of the problem is that we don't have a way to be able to persist state across crashes. Apparently, there is a new kubelet checkpointing routine that allows certain in-tree data structures to be periodically checkpointed to disk and then recovered at a later point. The purpose of this item would be to explore replacing the existing volume reconstruction code with that, with the hope that it would make this code more robust and stable. For this quarter, this would basically be exploratory and design. I think Jing would probably be a good person to help review this. Is anybody in the community interested in helping drive this? Silence.
I'm familiar with that issue, so but I'm already kind of piling.
You're
You can
signed up.
temporarily put me down.
Okay, you're a brave man, Vlad. Thank you for stepping up. And let me know if it ends up that you're not able to tackle it.
I was going to say you could put Jan as a backup on this too.
Okay.
He may not like that I said that.
Is he not here? That's why you're volunteering him?
Yeah, he's out on sick leave.
Oh, okay.
You're out
Watch
sick,
out
you get
for,
assigned on everything. All right, cool. Thanks, Vlad, Jan, and Brad. Next up is moving the GC cloud provider disk API to auto-generated code. This is, so the cloud provider code that currently exists in tree that the GC PD volume plugin uses is like a manual wrapper shell around the Go client code that the GCE cloud platform team ships. Last quarter, or the previous quarter, there was a big effort to auto-generate that wrapper instead of manually generating it. The auto-generated code is complete, but the Kubernetes GCE PD volume plugin still references the old code. And we're going to need someone from our team to help update that. Cheng from my team has agreed to work on that. But if anybody else is interested, happy to let you work on that as well. Or if you're interested in helping review this. Okay, going once, going twice. I'll take the review for that then. Next up is CSI Kubelet device plugin integration. So one of the big items that we weren't able to get to in the last quarter for CSI was a dynamic mechanism for plugins to register themselves with Kubelet. So we want to coordinate with other plugins in the Kubernetes ecosystem. Namely, we've been talking to the GPU folks with their device plugins and trying to come up with a generic mechanism by which an arbitrary plugin can register itself with Kubelet. We're closing in on a design that is basically using iNotify. If a socket appears in a directory that is being watched, then Kubelet will automatically probe it with a specified gRPC call to determine what that socket is responsible for, and then register it internally so that internal components like CSI and device plugins can use that to communicate with the device plugin. So this is a big outstanding piece of work for CSI, and looks like, Vlad, you've already signed up for it, so I'm happy to let you lead that.
Yeah. Yeah, because I started looking into it this quarter, so
yep.
Just continue.
Okay, cool. And I'm happy to review that. We should probably get Jan to take a look at this as well. And finally, I think Brad put this down, the plan to break up the external storage repo. Brad, I guess you're going to be the lead on this. I can help review this as well.
Just a bagel.
No bagels, please.
What kind you got? What? I'll take the sesame. Yeah.
Give me an everything.
Butter, great. If not, I realize you're close enough.
All right, bagels for the whole SIG. Let's see if I can do this one. All right, I'm going to mute everyone. Please unmute yourself if you're going to talk. Okay, so that concludes the items that we have planned for 1.10. Feel free to add items to this over the next 2 weeks. We're going to review this at the next meeting and nail down the priorities, and then convert them into feature issues in the Kubernetes feature repo. And then we'll get cracking on 1.11. So thank you for that. We have 20 minutes left in this meeting. Next up, I'm going to hand it off to Brad to discuss the external provisioner breakup. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, you want to bring up that spreadsheet, or I can start sharing?
I'll stop sharing. You can share.
So I went through and did a kind of an inventory of what was in the external storage repository. It's not real clean, but I threw in a spreadsheet, and so let me start over. The first step into breaking up the external storage repo for the steering committee and some of the documentation they've put out is identifying ownership for each project. So we have, I don't know, about 15 projects in the external storage repo. Some of them are pretty active, some of them are not too active but still useful, and then some of them I think are dead. But the first step to breaking them up is to identify the owner's form, and then go create new repositories for each one. And the spreadsheet is the first step of that. So what I'm asking for basically from the community is, if you are interested in one of these projects, if you've committed code to it, please put your name down as a maintainer. You don't necessarily have to be on the hook for maintaining it. If it falls out of maintenance over a certain period window, we'll probably just delete it. But we do need to identify owners for these projects before we can break them out. And if no owners identify, the project's going to get axed. So I'll leave this open. don't think it's worth the time right now to step through each one of these. I'll give everybody 2 more weeks to come and sign up for stuff. But please sign up. If you don't, you probably won't see the project anymore.
I think a lot of these external provisioners can probably be migrated to CSI drivers now.
Yes, and that was the other piece that I've left off of here is, we had that as a separate agenda item to determine how we're going to break up or how we're going to, migrate the CSI plugins.
Yeah.
And I think we should stick with the steering committee's advice and, identify ownership for each one of them. And we'll probably want to keep track of all SIG storage projects in a spreadsheet. I don't know, we haven't really done that in the past because we haven't had individual projects, but I've noticed that other SIGs do tend to keep like a project list.
Yeah, this is great. Cool. Thanks, Brad.
And one other piece, there's a couple different phases that a project can be in as owned by a SIG. You can have something that's incubating and could still be in the Kubernetes-incubator organization.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the core project stuff that's actually going to bundle and ship with Kubernetes. So that would go into a sub-repo of the Kubernetes org. And then there's a Kubernetes SIGs org that we're supposed to put projects that are kind of in the undefined, like not really sure if they're incubating or they're incubating on the way to being core projects. But we can determine all of that stuff after we've identified ownership for each project.
Okay, so if any of these projects looks familiar to you, it's something that you've worked on, please come in and update ownership information here, and then we'll proceed with the next step of figuring out where they should be moved to. All right, thanks, Brad.
Hey, Brad, do you have the link to that spreadsheet in the agenda?
Yes, it's in the doc. I also sent out an email, and I'll drop it in chat, too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, so next 2 items on the agenda, we have a set of bugs to talk about and then the face-to-face. So for bugs, Michelle, do you want to talk about it?
So basically, while we've been developing and triaging all these subpath volume related issues, I've noticed sort of a common theme, which is that containerized kubelet environment has a lot of problems, especially with regards to host path volumes. And we don't really have a clear owner for this in terms of the containerized kubelet environment. I feel like these problems are serious enough that we need to find an owner for containerized kubelet and the volume and integrating with the volume subsystem. Because some of these issues that we've hit are like core fundamental like architecture design issues that are going to be easily solved.
Michelle, I know Red Hat has done a lot of work in this kind of on the side because we run a containerized OpenShift. Do you want to work maybe offline to identify who did the work in Red Hat? Maybe have them help out on this?
Yeah, that would be great. Or either like, I don't know if someone from CoreOS is here. I believe CoreOS runs containerized kubelet by default. I'm not sure.
They're Red Hat now too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so yeah, I think it would be great to like actually have an owner in this area that can like handle all these bugs and kind of decide how to handle volumes in these kind of environments. And the other huge missing gap we have is we don't have any CI tests running in containerized kubelet. So some of these issues we hit could have easily been detected if we had simply just run the E2E test we have today in a containerized kubelet environment.
So I can identify like an SME from our side to help out on this, but I don't think they're going to want to do a lot of the lifting. You know what I mean? Like they can.
So I think it might be good, like, if we could at least like start the process of trying to find like a real owner for this, and put together maybe a mini team.
So what happens if we decide like, okay, we are going to need to run the E2E test in a containerized kubelet? So we'll like, I think even Microsoft Azure also, they also, because they're the one who reported a bunch of bugs, so they also use containerized kubelet. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, I mean, well, so at least the issues I pointed out, I think the problem is that like a lot of the problems are in the end center interface, and that's Linux specific and not Windows. So I think Windows team probably has their own infrastructure here to handle it.
Who started this effort? I mean, I'm from the OpenShift side. Like, we did this internally, and it wasn't something the community was interested in at the time. Like, who started the kubelet containerization effort?
Actually, Paul Murray, he started the whole thing, the center.
And
he's no longer with the SIG Storage anymore.
Well, right. I know he did the stuff, internally for OpenShift, but I wasn't aware of like containerized kubelet thing proper.
That's also started by Paul.
Michelle, what brought this to your attention? Like,
I mean, I've been trying to fix all the subpath bugs, and the bugs remaining are only affecting the containerized kubelet environment. But I don't, really have the expertise or resources to be able to develop and test these bugs.
Okay. Do you have a development resource that you can assign to this? And if one of us takes lead to, SME and bring them up to speed, that we could, I don't want us just to hold all the information is what I'm getting at. It's like, we've done this for OpenShift, we're SMEs on it, but I don't want to necessarily take the full ownership upstream. Like, I'd like to split it with someone in the community.
I think Michelle might be able to help review some of this stuff, but we're pretty constrained on resources on our side. And GCE and GKE don't actually do containerized kubelet. So we'd really like someone else to step up and take ownership of this. Otherwise it's going to be an area that's going to continue to suffer.
Well, that's what I was digging at earlier, is like, what do you guys care about containerized kubelet? Are you running it someplace? Is it?
No, from a Google side, we don't care about this. So
from a healthy Kubernetes SIG perspective, we need to make sure that all the ways that folks consume volume are stable. And so it would be really good to get someone to pick this up.
That's fair. So I will take this and I'll figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, as far as I understand, I think the containerized kubelet configuration is something that CoreOS pushes a lot. So I don't know if they might have some resources.
We'll find someone to dump this mess on.
Okay, I'll bring this up.
Jan, right? Brad, volunteer Jan for it. He's not here again.
Sorry, somebody was trying to say something?
No, I was. Oh, sorry.
This is Brian from Docker. I'll bring this up internally as well. I know it's something we've been looking at.
All right, cool.
Well, ultimately, like, we have to also figure out like how we're going to, if you're going to support it long run, how we're going to run end-to-end tests. That's like, and who runs it. So
yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for raising that, Michelle. And I think you have another issue that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, this second issue also came up in context of these subpath fixes. But basically, the problem is the host path volume itself doesn't support volume reconstruction. It never had to because the host path volume plugin never did any mounts. Any bind mounts at all. It was always just you gave it like a global mount path or something, and we assumed that you already globally mounted it somewhere else. But because of the subpath changes, now we are actually doing mounts for host path, and now we kind of have this hole where the host path volume doesn't go through reconstruction. So now anytime that event hits, you're going to be left over with these stale subpath mounts for host path. The really the only fix I can think of is to actually modify the host path volume to bind mount, to actually do a bind mount into varlib kubelet. But I feel like that's also a pretty big change. You know, we're changing something that has that change has the potential to impact, like, you know, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So more than just the subpath feature. So yeah.
Okay. I wonder if we should wait until we get to assess if we can move reconstruction to checkpointing, and that would potentially eliminate the need to have to add per volume reconstruction support, theoretically.
Yeah, that could potentially work. Well, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and I don't think host path is critical enough for us to require jumping on this immediately. If anybody's interested in working on this, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll leave it reassigned for now and then revisit it throughout the quarter. All right, cool. Thanks a lot for that, Michelle. And finally, we have a discussion about the next face-to-face meeting. Ardalan, take it away.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Can you stop sharing? Yeah, thanks. Yes. So do you see the screen now?
No.
No.
You see your face.
How about now?
Yes.
Great. All right. So thanks to everyone who took the survey. Here are the results. The most popular choices are the ones in the Bay Area in the second half of May. So these are the dates that work for most people. The main concern for these dates were that don't schedule face-to-face around Memorial Day weekend. So that was the only concern. So here are some of the, so the top choice according to survey are May 15 to 16 and May 22nd to 23rd.
So I think Sue mentioned OpenSDS Summit also on the same the week.
Right. So OpenStack Summit conflicts with this with the dates here.
Right. Yeah. OpenStack.
And Red Hat Summit conflicts with the dates in early May.
Okay. So can we say May 15, 16 then?
So 15 to 16 would work for, yes, for most people. Yeah.
May 15 to 16. Okay. Anybody disagree or want to object to May 15 or 16? Okay. And VMware or Steve, are you guys still okay hosting?
Yeah, I'm here. I'll get a confirmation. So it was up in the air which actual building location we can fit that into, but I'll go ahead and get moving and get back on more specifics then, based on those dates.
Okay, so let's, next steps, Ardalan, could you put together an RSVP or a document like we usually have for the agenda and have a RSVP list at the top? And folks, if you plan to attend, please fill that out as soon as possible because it'll help the organizers get an estimate for how many people are coming. Planning an event like this is a massive effort, and the earlier that we could get a head count, the better.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
50. So I might have to cut it off if it goes above that.
Okay. And if it becomes an issue, we can also look at hosting in Google because they would both be Silicon Valley area.
Yep.
All right, great. This sounds good. Anything else?
That's all.
All right. Thank you for driving that, Ardalan, and thanks for hosting, Steve.
No problem.
I believe that's all that we have on the agenda. The last item was an update on splitting external storage, but we've already done that. So we'll give you 3 minutes back in your day. All right, take care, folks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.